Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. Whole thing, dude.
American public and global public finally understands UFOs are real.
Non-human, exotic origin, vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
Gunter.
Hello.
How are you, my friend?
Very well, Vinny. And yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
And they're just in the trees over there.
There's been a UFO alert across southern Africa.
This is a continuation of possible UFO story.
A large, brightly coloured object was seen travelling very fast above Zimbabwe, Zambia and South Africa.
I thought it was an alien, and he had big eyes.
Several planes saw it. The experts are baffled.
Rua, Ariel School, 19th September 94, 12:12 local time. Could you tell me what you saw on Friday?
Well, it looked like it was like glinting in the trees. Like it looked like roundabout like a disc, like a round.
Are you sure it wasn't a Harrier jump jet or
No,
something that the Zimbabwe Air Force
It was like
have got?
in a disc. Kind of like that.
I saw something silver on the ground amongst the trees and a person in black.
They had big black eyes. That's all I saw. I saw a glimpse. They kind of turned around and stared and then went back into a kind of like ship.
I saw this silver thing in amongst this clump of trees with this one thing sitting on the side and another thing sort of like running up and down the top.
What does he look like?
His face was like this and his eyes were down here.
Mr. Mackey, you're headmaster of Ariel School. Tell me, what do you think of all this?
I feel sure that the children feel that they did see something. We asked them to draw pictures of what they saw on Friday, and after looking at those, I definitely feel that they did see something.
What do you think that was?
I agree that it could be something that we are not common with. But to actually say that it was a UFO, I would be reluctant to make a decision like that.
What did you see?
I just saw a glow over my chicken run, a very orange glow.
It was a helicopter or
No,
what?
it was just a big round ball.
Can you just tell us what happened the other night at Kariba?
We suddenly looked up and we saw this thing coming over the top of the hill. As it sort of came abreast of us, it suddenly changed from this glow to let's say two big red orange balls. Again, first thought was an Airbus 300 with the two engines. But then one thing we noticed about it was the lack of sound. In total, I would say about 14 people saw this, in our group anyway.
They did tell me from London this would be the biggest story of the 20th century.
As I said to Tim yesterday, I mean, I do believe the children saw something.
Saw a door.
What equipment have you brought with you?
Well, Gunter is a highly technical chap, and he's made his own Geiger counter, his own metal detector. We're going to check it out and see if there's any radioactivity there.
Cynthia, what are your impressions after this morning's little expedition?
Well, I certainly believe the children. I've come across a similar type of thing in Broadhaven in Wales, 1979, and the British didn't believe it. although I went down 3 times, and it's very similar to the whole incident here.
Wow. How does that feel, seeing yourself there?
Well, it brings back a lot of memories for sure.
Yeah.
And, and listening to, the late Cynthia Hind, also, brings back good memories as well, and all she had contributed to this case, bringing it to light,
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
the world, really,
So let's jump right back to that time, or even beforehand, what your background was leading up to that, how you got involved with Cynthia Hind. So if you could just sort of go from there, that'd be really interesting. Thank you, Gunter.
Yeah, I mean, I got interested in ufology by chance, really. My father was reading one of Cynthia's books during my late teens, basically. It was this book, UFO Afro News, African Encounters.
Wow.
It's a fantastic book, actually. If you ever get a chance to get hold of this, it's amazing stories in there.
I'll add it to my list.
I read it, and I was fascinated. I was really, really drawn in by the topic and what happened and some of the evidence she gathered, which was just absolutely amazing. I never heard about UFOs before that time.
Right.
And my father didn't even share the book, so I just picked it up. So it was kind of by accident. And then one day I showed it to my gran, and I was talking about it, and she told me, "Oh, I've seen a UFO." And I said, "What? You've seen a UFO?" I said, "When was that?" She said, 1968 in Sikolilo in northwest Zimbabwe. And she described seeing this very bright light initially. She was outside. It's a small, town or village. And she saw a bright light in the distance. And this was during the war in Zimbabwe, during the liberation struggle, as they call it. She was standing there she had a little shop there, and she was standing with a security guard, and they were just chatting in the early evening. And from the distance, they noticed this very bright light approaching the area. And she thought, oh, maybe it's a helicopter or a plane or something, but it had no noise. And as it got closer and closer and closer, she could make out the shape of the object with this very intense bright light underneath it. And I said to her, what did it look like? She said it was all black. And she said, oh, if you take 2 soup bowls inverted over each other, that's how it looked like.
So that's a proper UFO, like a saucer, yeah.
And she went on to say it was at tree height level, and it seemed to be coming to land near where they were.
Wow.
So there were lots of people excited about this, pointing at this strange looking object in the sky coming down silently. And all of a sudden, if it noticed these people all getting excited, she said it just shot off at an angle.
Wow.
And disappeared. And that was the end of it.
That's incredible.
And that was her experience of a UFO. And then, of course, that really drew me in after her story.
Yeah.
But she never spoke about it. And just because I mentioned it to her, that I was reading this book about, UFOs, and said, oh, yeah, I saw one of these objects. And I was taken aback about that. She actually saw something.
That is interesting.
And then I noticed, because at the back in the book, there was a postal address where people could report or write to Cynthia. I wrote to her. Not straight away. This was late on when I was in high school, just about finished high school. I was keen in electronics and making gadgets and stuff like that. I wrote to her and I said, look, I've made this device. It's like an electrostatic device. It picks up fields, electric fields. Maybe it would be useful in your cases, picking up the presence of anything that generates electric fields, because often UFOs seem to be associated with disturbance in, cars, engines failing, or electrical equipment failure and things like that. So I thought this device would pick it up.
Would it pick up electromagnetism as well, or is it that different?
It wasn't a magnometer as such. It was picking up electric fields, static fields. that kind of thing, you know. So,
Sure.
but it was very sensitive, so it could pick up lightning in the distance and things like that.
Wow.
So she came back to me and said, "Oh yeah, that'd be really interesting. And would you mind me inviting you over to one of our talks?" And I said, "Oh, that'd be fantastic, you know." And so she used to have maybe twice or 3 times a year, she used to invite people, certain people, to her home to talk on the latest reports that she had come across both locally and internationally.
Sure.
Because she was part of MUFON. She was the local MUFON representative for Africa, basically.
Right.
So a lot of her research was in that, and taking those reports and sending them off to MUFON or writing her own books. And this when she wrote her first book, this one here, African Encounters. And then later on, she obviously wrote the UFOs over Africa, her second book. And that's in the last chapters, she mentions Ariel because she just added it in because it just happened at that time when she was about to finish the book, you know.
Wow, that's incredible.
Well, that's fortunate of her. And then obviously, as what happened basically going forward, Cynthia received a call from Tim Leach, the BBC, cameraman, reporter.
Yeah.
That he had, I think some parents had contacted BBC saying, "Oh, something happened at the school, something strange. Craft had landed, etc." So he contacted Cynthia saying, "Look, there's been a UFO report, craft landed at a school and everything. And he's spoken to Mr. Mackey if we can interview the kids, and he's arranged to come over, after the weekend, because the landing happened on the 16th, Friday the 16th, and we were going to go the following week, just after the weekend, just to get out to Ariel School and, talk to the kids, and then obviously go out into the field and do a little bit of an investigation around the area while we have time."
Probably good to get it so soon after when it's still fresh in their minds as well.
Cynthia was almost enthusiastic to go actually on Friday. It would have been great if we could have, because then it'd be really fresh. But it was late in the day, the kids were going home, and the school was going to be closed anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, we drove out to Ariel School, myself, Cynthia, Tim Leach, and Cynthia's son was helping out just with the equipment, carrying the equipment. And we got to the school. Obviously, the kids were quite excited, hearing the BBC was coming, to film them and, document what they had seen. But the good thing, Cynthia had told Mr. Mackey, before we come, can you get the kids to draw while it was fresh in their mind and they hadn't discussed it much with each other.
Sure.
So, there wouldn't be too much interference from, someone telling this kid and that kid what they saw.
Of course.
So they would draw what they saw. And obviously, we got to the school, there's a whole pile of papers of all the drawings, which were absolutely fascinating to look at. Obviously, many of you might have seen the drawings that have come out and are shown on the BBC, some of those drawings there that you just showed, Vinny.
I could probably bring some up if you keep talking. I'll try and get some of the photos.
I've got a picture of Tim Leach. Here's he here, the cameraman. That's on the day we went out.
Oh, wow.
You never get quite to see him, but here he is.
You never do. No, that's amazing.
Yeah. So Cynthia had the teachers brought some of the kids into a staff room with the headmaster, and we questioned the kids and, asked them. Obviously, what we wanted was to have them on their own, but we couldn't get them on their own at the time because of, I think the teachers just wanted to oversee this because of parental concern, and obviously we probably weren't vetted people, so letting us be alone with children wasn't allowed, that kind of thing. So we were talking to the kids, and they told us some of their stories about. Some of them actually drew. I noticed on the drawings, some of them said on Thursday they saw this, and on Friday they saw the landing. So there were actually 2 events, at the school. Some of the kids saw what looked like a cigar-shaped object.
Wow.
Flying, but it didn't land. It just flew. And it seemed to be appearing, disappearing, like lights appearing and then disappearing, like if it was jumping in space, like not traveling, almost jumping.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
that's reported a lot in a lot of UFO cases throughout the
Yeah,
years.
it's almost like they skipping. It's like a skipped frame. You know, you see it there, then suddenly, oh, it's over here. You know,
Yeah.
you know.
Wow.
And they saw these lights, obviously, and then going further on the Friday, where the main event occurred, when the kids were going out for their morning break, some of the kids noticed this object coming down to land, and it landed in somewhere between the trees, these gum trees outside the boundary of the school. They had these large logs on the edge of the school boundary. So the kids knew they mustn't go beyond this point because the rest of the area was long grass and bushed up area. And
it's funny because this behind me is actually an overview of Ariel School. So we're probably talking about, sort of, is there some borderlines along there?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at this picture here.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
You can see it was very arid, dry at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can see two of the kids. You can see behind them how long the grass and
I see
bushes. We walked with them there, so they came with us to show us where they saw the craft, etc., landing.
I'll just quickly bring up these photos again. So that's one of them I've just found. I mean,
you can see the grass there on the side and the trees.
Of course, yeah. That's amazing.
It is.
And
so
again, the grass as well with the trees.
Yep.
I mean, that's,
So
and there was quite a lot of photos. Sorry, a lot of drawings. It wasn't just 2 or 3. There was 20 plus, or loads. Yeah. So sorry,
amazing.
Carry on.
So after we interviewed some of the kids, they took us outside to show us, the direction they saw the craft, and we had two. It seemed like there were 2 events happening. One with the main craft. And then there were other craft that seemed to have landed elsewhere, just a little bit further on one side. Some kids said, we saw these other craft like landing towards that side in a more bushy area with long grass. But the main event was happening on the right-hand side of the school grounds, facing out.
Yeah.
So everyone's attention was drawn there, but some of the kids saw this few other craft going this way.
That's something you don't hear a lot about in relation to this case.
Yeah, exactly. It's just small things like that. And I'll tell you why that is significant later on.
Sure.
So the kids took us, and also the interesting thing, I was with Tim Leach and 2 of the kids. And while they were pointing out where they saw this thing, Tim and I, and I think those 2 kids I just showed you, Guy and Farai, Guy, we saw this light actually. We never told anyone really. We saw this light on a kopje. A kopje in Zimbabwe is like a small little rocky outcrop, like a hill.
Yeah.
At the far end, out in the bush, opposite the school. And we saw this very bright light. And to be honest, we thought it was something reflecting off, the sunlight, like maybe a window or. Because in Zimbabwe, a lot of the rural houses were built with galvanized sheeting on them. So sometimes in the sun, they might reflect a lot of light. So I was thinking, that's that, And we would just continue talking to the kids where they saw the craft, and then they proceeded to take us out to the area about roughly 200 meters, I'd say, from the edge of the playground to where the landing site was, near there. But the ground was very hard in that area, so we didn't see any, should I say physical
like indentations
or indentations in that area or anything like that. And obviously I took out some of my homemade Geiger counter, metal detector, and I had the EMF, the electrostatic detector.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything of significance that appeared. And my Geiger counter, because it was homemade, was you couldn't get proper equipment there. So I was making them myself as best as I can. I also went to the university to ask if we could borrow their Geiger counter, but theirs was broken. So,
oh no!
So there was no chance to take a proper sensitive Geiger counter with me.
Yeah.
And because the kids said, "Oh, the insects were dead on the ground or something," but I couldn't really see any insects that were dead on the ground.
Right.
But the ground was just very arid because the country was going through a drought at the time.
Sure.
So everything was dry. Anyway, we just scouted around, and Cynthia went on another path down the, further on, looking around that area. And then we came back and we spoke to the kids again to find out if there's anything else they would like to talk about. This is when I found out about these other kids who said they saw something over this side.
I see.
So I asked them, what did you see? And they said the smaller craft, they went that side. And later on, Cynthia, in her later little booklets that she used to print to her subscribers.
Right.
Because I went out the following weekend, so I could have more time to actually look over the grounds quietly without any disturbance. I had a friend of mine from work, where I was working in Aurora, to just help me take some pictures.
Sure.
And I took my camera as well. And because I was going to go there and take some soil samples around the area to see if there's anything that would turn up. Cynthia said nothing has really come of it. There was nothing of significance. But then I went to the area where the boys said they saw something. And when I went down there, I saw 2 oval impressions on the ground. So there were 2 oval impressions. I took photographs of them, and I marked them on the book here. So if you look here, so the main event was happening this side. So the kids were on the playground here, and across here, this was where the main UFO. And then further down this side, I drew these 2 ovals, one a large oval which seemed to go across the path and to the other side, and then a smaller one just next to it. And they had a kind of like a clockwise rotation to the oval grass impression on the ground.
Right, yeah, I'm with you.
So slightly spiraled. And I looked carefully and I found what looked like a wedge-shaped mark. Like, I don't know if something pressed in the ground, about the size, about maybe 15, 20 centimeters long, 5 centimeters wide in a wedge kind of shape.
I mean, that could be indicative of a landing leg,
or some,
speculating there.
It's hard to say exactly, so I found those 2 impressions, and I took the pictures, I got them. Some people know about it, and I've given those out.
Right.
And so it's not a well-known fact that I had that evidence for something.
That's really good data.
Yes. I mean, I was always keen on getting data and getting photographs and things. That's why I made all these equipment, because Cynthia didn't have enough equipment, or equipment wasn't available in the region,
Yeah.
So I decided to start making something so we could get some kind of data out of it.
Sure. I mean, witness statements are great, and photographs and videos are great as well. But that third data information is just as important, sometimes even more important in some cases. So I think that's really good that you were, that's where your head was at.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't know if many of you know, but on the Wednesday prior to the landing, there was what looked like, there was what we call a UFO flap over Zimbabwe, Zambia. I mentioned in the little clip you just spoke about, lights in the sky, which preceded the whole event about 2 days before. And most people, we thought it was probably a breaking up of a satellite or some space debris coming through, which was breaking up and causing all this pyrotechnic effect in the sky.
Sure.
I didn't see it myself, but a lot of people in the region did see that. And some of the reports were quite intriguing because they didn't sound like meteorites or satellite breaking up. They seemed to be doing odd things. And even, I think in Bulawayo, the southern town of the next major town in Zimbabwe, in the southern part of the country, I think the fire brigade was called out because they thought it was actually an aircraft coming down.
Wow. So, and were any of the reports from? Cause I think it was reported that some aircraft saw the lights as well. Did you see any reports from pilots? Because that vantage point would probably be, interesting to see.
I mean, I didn't get those reports from the pilots itself, but in terms of the case, even the night after the landing near the school, apparently someone was driving on the roads near the school there. They were coming from the school in the evening, about 8 o'clock in the evening. In that region, it's quite dark. And they described the scene like dead people walking towards them on the road, because it's just white haired with these big eyes, standing on the road, and they crashed, and knocked unconscious. So the guy he didn't remember how long he was unconscious, but when he came round, he ran back to the school.
Wow! And
of course, in Zimbabwe, they have this mythology called the Tokolochis, in their local culture.
Right, yeah.
And the Tokolochis are like little creatures that can come into your house and they do all kinds of mischief, or they, it's part of the local superstition there,
Sure.
So some of the local kids in the school were attributing the aliens to the Tokolochis.
Wow, okay.
So you can see how that culture also affects what they were translating, what they were seeing,
Yeah.
I mean, and then obviously later on, John Mack came over and interviewed the kids. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen some of those interviews that he did, which were absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
From his point of view.
Did you meet him?
Yes, I met him.
Oh,
I met him. I actually went out with him
Wow.
and the crew when they were interviewing the kids. So I was actually sitting in the room while he was interviewing them.
Wow.
So it was absolutely, a privilege.
I'm a big fan of his work. I mean, that's impressive, man.
And we had dinner with him later as well. So we were discussing on the table, and I gave him this year a drawing from the descriptions the kids did.
Right. Okay.
This is actually his notes here, because this is a copy. So he had the original that I drew for him. Because a lot of the kids were saying they saw this thing with hair, it looked like hair on them. So, which was interesting. Mostly you just hear people just talking about, just with the big head and the big eyes.
Yeah.
And so, but they were talking, a lot of the kids were talking with hair on them for some reason. And this tight-fitting outfit that covered them. Yeah.
Yeah, like a spacesuit almost. I think.
Yeah, they either like a space. Well, they didn't even know a spacesuit. They were calling like diver suits or tight.
Sure, of course. Yeah. Wow.
So amazing. I mean, I still get goosebumps when I think about the case.
I can imagine. I mean, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, just the way you explained it in such details, and yeah. I mean, I suppose back then you didn't know that this was going to be something you'd still be talking about, 25 odd years later. I
mean, I only was with Cynthia maybe 2 years, and then this major case just literally dropped on our doorstep, which is about 22 kilometers out of Harare. So it's really not far away from us in the city, but still rural in Zimbabwe's terms, because it's still, when you go out there, it seems so far removed from anywhere, really.
And did you hold on to many of the documents and files and stuff from the reports, or did Cynthia have all of that after the fact?
Yeah, I had all the documents, and it's all been archived for longevity now.
Nice.
So there's a Swedish company that's storing all the documents, and they're scanning all the documents so they can be for posterity, really. So anyone can get into them in future dates and get the data.
And is that accessible for the general public as well?
I'm not sure if it's generally accessible to the public at the moment, but I can find out for you.
I'd be very interested in seeing those documents. So yeah, at some point in the future, if you don't mind. So how did you feel? I mean, we had a little brief chat before we came on live, and you said that you read about the subject still. And let's talk about. Did you see The Phenomenon, the documentary by James Fox? I think it was 2018. How did that make you feel, seeing the case being brought up back into the limelight as well? Did that just...
I mean, to be honest, I never thought the case would grow as it has now, especially in the last couple of years, really. Since the ATIP with Lou Elizondo and all those people coming up, suddenly there's just been a boom in this. And a lot of people, funny enough, have been asking Lou, do you know about the school at Ariel? And he said, yes. And they said, what do you think of why they appeared there, And Lou said, do you know there's a uranium mine not far away? Because he's associating these crafts with nuclear, obviously with his military background. I think that's where he goes, with that.
I tried looking that up online and I couldn't find anything to suggest there was a uranium mine nearby. Can you confirm that there was?
There is a uranium mine, but it's not like it's right there. It's like a little bit of a distance away from there. But in terms of scale, it's very close. Wow, I'll have to send you that.
If you could, because I literally just couldn't. I mean, then I was looking, I was like, oh, hang on a minute. This was 94. Maybe it was been and gone. So I was then trying to dive back into historic records from Zimbabwe, and I just couldn't find anything. I was really frustrated because I wanted to make that connection, and prove that what Lou was saying was, had some validity to it. So thank you. I'd love to any information you can provide.
Yeah, I'll try and dig that up for you as well. And also, if anyone wants to read Cynthia's booklets, the UFO Afro News little booklets, I've created a website dedicated to her, basically, and I've put all her booklets there. There's about, I think, 21 of them. So there's PDFs on there which anyone can read from on there. I think booklets 12 and 13 should have Ariel School information in there for those who want to have a read through that as well.
Of course, if you actually, after this is finished, if you want to send me the link, I can pop it in the description of this video, so whoever wants to go in can do that. And I mean, that's incredible. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Just sticking with the case, obviously, did you ever get back in touch with any of the kids now that they're older, or speak to them since?
Yes. Funny enough, today, one of the kids actually contacted me.
Wow.
And I was laughing to myself because I'm sure it's him, Farai, in this picture. But he's a much bigger guy now.
Yeah.
And he was just sending me a message on Instagram message, saying, hello, do you remember me? I was part of the, the sighting that happened in Ariel. And I said, oh, yeah, that's fantastic. We'll have to talk sometime.
That's incredible, man.
So yeah, I have spoken to some of the kids, and also Lisa, who drew that UFO craft that looks like a dome, and you see the aliens next to it. Yeah, I'm in contact with her as well. I haven't spoken to her face to face. We just spoke on Facebook, because of the lockdown. No one can really see each other,
No, of course.
Past.
Oh, maybe we should do this again, except next time you can invite your friends in and we can get different viewpoints. I think that would be absolutely amazing. So
yeah, I think they got the best part of the story. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you were there is huge. And like I've said to you already, I'm so grateful that you were able to join us. But, thank you so much. I won't keep you any longer. I've asked all my questions, and I would love it if we could do this again, get a few of the witnesses in alongside you. And yeah, thank you so much, Gunter. I really appreciate it. It's been incredible.
No, it's a real pleasure, Vinny, and thank you for inviting me.
Hey, no problem. And we'll stay in touch as well. I'd like to, do that. All right, then. Well, listen, you enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.